Good evening. Call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Inform the public we are returning from an executive session with 2 votes that Ms. Riley will report out on.
Under business, new business?
Oh, we can do that. That's fine.
Sure,
Absolutely.
'cause we
Sure.
didn't actually
Yep,
vote,
that's fine. This meeting is being recorded live by Raynham, and Ms. Riley, will you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. The minutes, please.
I make a motion that we approve, accept as printed the minutes of the October 8th Selectmen's meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those are approved. We have no department heads or committees this evening. As the board is aware, and just so the public knows, we'll be going through our agenda. At that point, at the conclusion, we will turn it over to the moderator for the pre-town meeting, and then the board will adjourn the meeting. But once we get to the end of the agenda, this board will not take any other business or action this evening. Appointments this evening, and to our right is our town administrator-elect, and we have reached a contract agreement which we're presenting to the board for approval tonight. Ms. Riley, you want to start us off?
Sure, and welcome to Mr. Waters. And we do have a contractual agreement. As we know, we voted previously to appoint Mr. Waters to the position of town administrator, and this will employ Mr. Waters as town administrator for the period beginning on October 14th and continuing through June 30th, 2022, which is a 2.5-year contract, and it is consistent with the parameters of the advertisement.
And that's a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is a unanimous vote. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Next
Welcome.
Next up under appointments is the reappointment of Constable Lawrence Cabraceras. It's the board's pleasure.
Motion to appoint.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is approved. No other appointments this evening. Citizen and community input, any? Seeing none? Okay, public hearings. We have a dog hearing this evening. I will call that hearing to order. Last week, I was notified by the Assistant Animal Control Officer regarding a bite by a dog on South Street East. That animal was the same animal this board had a hearing on back in July, excuse me, with the owner, Matthew Keith, of 539 South Street East. At that hearing, as the board will recall, we imposed certain requirements in order for the owner to maintain ownership of the dog. It's my understanding that those requirements have not been met, and subsequent to that, there's been another attack now. So if the board doesn't object, I'll turn it over to Animal Control for their presentation, and then if the owner of record is here, we'll turn it to him.
Good evening, Linda Brackett, Assistant Animal Control Officer. I think everything that I'm going to talk about is in your package. A couple of things I want to note was the conditions for releasing the dog last time was that within 30 days of the owner taking ownership of the property, there would be a fence built. We were misled on that. They had actually taken ownership of that property in February. I have a copy of the deed in your package. So they had owned the property prior to the incident. One of the other things was that the dog needed to be licensed. I have a letter here from the town clerk that states the dog is still not licensed. The dog was supposed to, if he was allowed outside, so the kennel was supposed to be built within 30 days. There is no kennel. There is no dog license. The neighbors that I've spoken to, some of them are here this evening, have said that the dog is outside without a muzzle. There's people here that are afraid of the dog. There's a next door neighbor that's very afraid of him. The man that was bit, he has pictures and you can see his hand. The dog got out. The other thing I've got in there, the thing that really concerns me is the first bite was on the property where the dog resided. So that was the dog's domain. So not to give the dog a pass, but the dog, that was his house. You've got a Google Earth map in your package that shows the purple dot is where the dog lives, and the X on Ashley Way is where the dog was. So the dog got out of his yard, traveled a long distance, can you, that little black mark, can you see it? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the dog traveled a long distance. That's very concerning. I mean, the original call that I got from the police department was, there was a dog that was knocking people over. Well, I was about halfway there, and then all of a sudden they're calling for the ambulance. The dog that had knocked people over had now attacked the man in his own yard. I mean, it's scary. So you get the Google Earth, you've got the police report. So they haven't complied with anything that we had asked them to comply with. And I mean, the simplest thing was licensing the dog. And they can't even do that. How can they keep the public safe?
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Brackett? No? Ms. Riley? No. Okay. Is the owner of the animal present? I don't see him, but I want to make sure I'm not missing him. No. Just for the board's knowledge, I did instruct Mr. Luciano to have the police department serve him. That way we could confirm that it had been delivered and that was completed. So I'm confident that he did receive notification of this hearing. It is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who would like to speak on this issue? Sir, if you could just state your name and address for the record before you start.
Virgilia Cabral, 45 Ashby Way.
Okay.
I'm the one that got bit.
Okay.
I would like to ask the owner, the dog was gone for half an hour. They knew he was gone, the son was there. No attempt was made to follow this dog where he went to. This could have been a lot worse. This is actually nothing compared to what he could have done to my wife and my dog in the yard at the same time. He dragged my wife 10 feet across the yard because she tried to hold him back. Now his shoulder's all screwed up. Not good.
Okay.
This dog should not be let out from where he is right now.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sir?
Fred Kolosky, 525 South Street East. I live next door. I didn't even realize that this dog had been brought before the town before. And I wish the town, wish there's some way that they could notify the abutters. And I hear the dog out there barking now. If I know, I'm outside all day long. I got no shot at it. So.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none. Does the board have a desire to move forward at this time? I know last time we had postponed the hearing where he wasn't present, but that was because we could not confirm receipt of the notice. As I said, I'm confident that the owner of record has received the notification of this hearing and has chosen, for whatever reason, not to attend.
I'd like to know why he didn't do the requirements.
I don't know.
And he's not here to represent himself to answer the questions.
I can address that a little bit. I had spoken to them. They said that they were busy and they just hadn't gotten around to doing the fence. And I said, well, that was supposed to be done within 30 days. And then I found out they've owned the property since February. So, I mean, that's really, he's had a long time. There was no indication that they were, doing anything. They said, well, this is all marked off. But where they marked off was in the front yard. I don't think they're going to put the dog in the front yard, so I didn't see any indication in the backyard where it would go. So I don't know, but there's no fence whatsoever.
Linda, can I ask you what kind of a dog it was?
He's a gray and white pit bull.
Can I?
Sure.
They tie the dog up in the woods behind the house.
I didn't hear what you said, sir.
They tie him up in the woods
Behind the house.
behind the house, in between my property and his property.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think the most important thing at the last hearing was that we said he had to be under the owner's control at all times.
Correct.
And obviously that's
Not
not.
tied
And
to a
muzzled,
chain.
and muzzled, and the neighbors I spoke to said the dog's always outside unmuzzled.
So he's obviously a danger to the
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, I mean, I
Definitely.
think what's unfortunate is this board's desire to preserve the animal's life and the owner's flagrant negligence.
It's too bad that has to be the dog's punishment
Right.
for the owner's ignorance
I
and,
want you to know that my wife is very much against putting this dog down. She's very much against putting the dog down. So what's the decision of you folks here to do whatever you have to do, but she's pretty much against it, have to be involved by this dog.
What's the board's pleasure?
oh, God. I really wish he was here. This is totally unfair that he is not here to represent himself and his dog. I don't like to do it, But the dog is obviously a danger to everybody around. He's not confined, he's not at the, he doesn't have a responsible owner.
No, I mean, if he can't even license the dog.
No license, no anything.
I mean, a fence is a little more difficult and expensive to do, but to license a dog, I mean, that's basic.
I see no choice, I don't think we have a choice other than to put the dog down.
Right.
Okay. Is-
Unfortunately, I agree with you, and you know, I'm a big animal lover, and it's very, very sad, but this attack wasn't even in his own yard. This was, I don't know.
Well, he was
quarter of
quite a
mile
distance away from his own yard.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
heaven
dogs do
forbid,
like to
there's a lot
travel.
of
They
children
like
in
to-
that neighborhood, too.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of older people.
Yeah.
The man next door was afraid, like, his wife got knocked over too. And this gentleman lives on the other side in a wheelchair. I mean, if that dog ever jumped on him, he's not gonna be able to get up.
Was that a motion, Mrs.?
Yes,
All right, so your motion is to order the euthanasia of the dog?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, regretfully, but based on our animal inspector's recommendation, and I don't think we have another choice, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, that's a unanimous order.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So now we've got to serve that.
Yeah,
to
you
them, I
can,
believe.
you can coordinate with Mr. Waters on
Okay.
what we need to do, but the board's issued their determination, so. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. No other public hearings this evening. New business, the first is the Mr. Luciano's town representation contract. Ms. Riley, would you like to report out on that?
Yes, and this is a proposed agreement between the town of Raynham and Mr. Luciano to take effect when Mr. Luciano's tenure as interim town administrator concludes on October 17th. And it's to cover any assistance, attendance, and participation in meetings and hearings that he is required to provide related to his services as interim town administrator. And I would recommend that we approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And just to clarify as well, that's a per diem contract,
Yes.
so only as needed.
Only as needed, yes.
All right. Contract with the Lakeville Animal Shelter. What is the board's pleasure on that? This is a renewal of the contract that we've had for, I'd say, about 5 or 6 years at least.
Yeah, I would move to renew it.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is approved, thank you. Any other new business, Mrs. Smith?
No, sir.
Ms. Riley?
Not at this time.
Okay, old business, Mrs. Smith?
No.
Ms. Riley?
No.
All right, Town Administrator's Report, Mr. Waters.
Happy to have my first report before the town. Ongoing right now, we have the upcoming fall town meeting, which will be held on Monday, October 21st at 7 p.m. at the Raynham Middle School. The warrant has been mailed out to each resident box holder. Copies of the official warrant have been posted at the 6 locations throughout town as required, and has been posted on our town's website as well. Printed copies in both standard and booklet form are also available in the Selectmen's office. I'm proud to announce that the town has received a recycling grant. Raynham has received a Sustainable Materials Recovery Program grant in the amount of $2,800 from the Department of Environmental Protection. Upcoming, we have the Selectmen's next regularly scheduled meeting will be on Tuesday, October 21st at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Meeting Room. And then we have a Public Safety Building Committee meeting. It was scheduled to be held tomorrow. It's now going to be scheduled for Wednesday, October 22nd in the Town Hall Meeting Room, which is where we are now.
Great, thank you, Mr. Waters. Any questions for Mr. Waters?
No, sir.
Great first
All right.
report.
Selectmen's Report, Mrs. Smith.
I have nothing.
Ms. Riley.
Just want to encourage everybody that special town meeting next Monday, you're going to hear about it later in this meeting here, but so important, it's 7 o'clock at the Raynham Middle School, lots of important articles, so please attend that. And just want to express my sadness for the former Raynham resident, Mr. Scott Mosman, a Taunton resident, who passed away from Triple E. This is our second Raynham loss, Marty Newfield years ago, and now Scott Mossman. So again, everybody, please remember, even though the evenings are cool, there are still mosquitoes out there. Please take all precautions that you possibly can, especially with, the Halloween and so forth. Make sure those kids have protection. And just one other thing I want to mention quickly. I had the opportunity to attend an event our La Liberty Parents Organization arranged for at the La Liberty Elementary School. Rob Surratt and his amazing hero art. He's world famous, recognized as the fastest portrait painter in the world. He does a fantastic job. He paints a portrait in 15 minutes, and it is so good it looks like a photograph. He's been on the Today Show, on the Tonight Show, gone all over the world. He actually works now for Walt Disney Productions, but they allow him so many weeks a year if he visits different schools. He was at La Liberty for our grade 2, 3, and 4 students and totally excited them. His whole message is that you can do what you set your mind to. And he talks about, the real type of heroes, like so many, like Albert Einstein and Abraham Lincoln and Mother Teresa, and he has portraits of all of these, and the kids were just so excited. And I almost thought that Ellen DeGeneres was going to get the biggest round of applause until he brought out the portrait of Tom Brady. And everybody just went crazy. But it was a great event, and congratulations to the La Liberty Parents Group, especially Wendy, who coordinated that for a great event in the town of Raynham. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Riley. We actually have no correspondence this evening. The press is not with us. Any emergency business? Okay, at this time, the board will turn it over to Mr. Donahue, our moderator, for the pre-town meeting, and we will adjourn the meeting with the administrative duties after, no other business. Mr. Moderator. Maybe I'll move my nameplate for you.
Thanks, Joe. Congratulations again. Welcome to Raynham. Gentlemen, ready? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the pre-town meeting. As Mr. Pacheco stated, I'm the town moderator, John Donahue. I'm joined by Chair of the Capital Planning Committee, Brendan Loftus, and Chair of the Finance Committee, Gil Aligi. We'll be going through the special town meeting warrant in preparation for next Monday night's special town meeting, which begins at 7 p.m. at the Raynham Middle School auditorium. This is the one of two town meetings that we have every year. In the spring, we do the operational budget and predominantly some zoning articles to prepare ourselves for the new fiscal year. And then in the fall, when the financial picture of the town is a bit clearer, we come back to town meeting and deal with our capital items and other housekeeping items, if there are any, to close out the year. I don't know if either one of you have any comments with regards to the process this year, or anything that you want to bring to our attention. None at this time, John. No, both going to pass, so we'll get right into it. I'm not going to read the articles. I'm just going to work through them fairly quickly, give you a high-level review of what they're trying to accomplish, and if anybody has any questions, or if any of our department heads, of which there are many in the audience, if any of you have any comments that you'd like to bring to the town's attention now before town meeting, just get my attention. Mr. Wheeler, welcome.
Thank you. I don't have a lot of questions pertaining to the individual articles. I think the thing that I'm concerned about is that for the second year in a row, we end up with free cash in excess of $3.25 million. I think that in one way, we should be happy to have this cash available to handle all of our capital needs, and at the same time, to prepare for stabilization funds by adding to it. I guess the concern that I have is I think that back in May 2018, when we set up the fiscal budget for 2019, we could have been more conservative. I realize it's easy to sit back and say that because I'm not on the firing line as these gentlemen are. But I think that I have concern when I realized that we could have lowered our taxes, and I don't care about the rate. I'm talking about the absolute dollars, because the rate, when you change the assessments, it means little. It's the absolute dollars, but I live in an over 55 community, and lots of my neighbors are living on fixed incomes. I don't think they're going to be too happy to have their total Social Security go up 1.6% next year. So I guess I just am hopeful that when we work on fiscal 2021 next May, that we can give some thought to holding the absolute dollars on the taxes level, or certainly have a very moderate increase if we do. I realize that if we take the free cash that is not needed and apply it to the tax rate, it probably doesn't even show. But nevertheless, I do have the concern for people like myself that are in their 80s plus and have probably had the same income for the last 20, 25 years to every year hope that the taxes don't jump $400 or $500 on their individual property. So that's the only say I have, and a request that if you look very hard come next May for fiscal 21, that we do something about it if we can. I promise to keep my mouth shut the rest of the night. It's difficult for me, but I will do so.
Does anybody want to address that? So that's, Dwayne, that's a wide open question, as you know.
Yes,
You've been doing this a long time, and that's a question that could be fielded by any number of different town officials, including our finance committee.
I don't know the answer to it either.
And I think if you ask the finance committee, the capital planning committee, the board of selectmen, the board of assessors, perhaps even our new town administrator, you might get 5 different answers, right? Because it's very personal. People have very, very personal opinions about town finances, and I'll give you the moderator's opinion. Not that you asked for it, but
I want you to know, everyone else, that I am not criticizing what these gentlemen.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to insinuate you were.
It wasn't last May that ended with this $3.25 million. It was the year before. So nevertheless, I don't criticize your work. I understand the difficulty in it, but I just feel I wanted to say something for many people who are not looking forward to the huge increase of 1.6% on Social Security.
yeah, I just think that there's, I think I would feel differently if I saw a warrant or a number of warrants over the last few years just full of, items that are just unnecessary or, egregious. I don't see that. And I've been watching this for a long time and participating for a long time. And I think that if I ever got the impression that we were raising more funds than we needed and trying to find creative ways to spend that money, I'd feel a bit differently. But the town has, thanks to the leadership of the financial team and previous boards of selectmen and the current board of selectmen, I think the town's been very, very frugal over the years. And there have been a lot of sacrifices asked of town departments, including staffing, capital items, contract negotiations, And I think that that's all starting to come to bear. We are now finding ourselves in a very good financial position. Now the decision is what now, right? Because Dwayne, I know that there are some debt things that are probably coming down the line, right? And I know that for the majority of the departments, because I talked to the financial team quite a bit, I know that the majority of departments are in a good spot now, and there are no, with the exception of perhaps a facility in town, there are no huge overhanging financial commitments. I'll look at the town treasurer, he's shaking his head because he knows we have we've got some commitments or some, what's the word for it, Michael, some dependencies down the road on our healthcare and retirement benefits and things like that, but we are starting to take care of that, but that you can't ignore that. But you and I have talked about this a lot. It pains us to see the rainy day fund go to a large reservoir, right? And it's really incumbent on the board and my two financial partners over here to determine at some point whether or not it's appropriate to maybe give a little bit back.
Well, I'm sure, John, that no one was surprised to hear my comments. I made them.
I could have given them for you.
Yeah,
I've heard them a number of times.
probably more eloquently than I did, too.
I don't know if
A quick word to Dwayne. Dwayne, your voice is loud and clear, and it's very important that you speak to us about those concerns. The last couple of years, we used the extra funding that we found to shore up much-needed issues in different departments. As you know, in our tenure with you and I, there was years where there was absolutely nothing in the coffers. So I hear your voice loud and clear. We couldn't anticipate that we would have the building boom that we have in the last couple of years, but who knows what the future will bring. There will be years when we have time to shore up these items, and there will be other years when we have nothing. So we have to be very careful and at the same time spend frugally. It's not an easy task, but there's no malice aforethought. We try and do the right thing. But I hear your voice. Thank you.
Anybody else before we jump into the, no one has got to touch that, huh? Okay. Article 1, a $3,000, and when you hear me say numbers tonight, I'm rounding, approximately $3,000 into the Transportation Infrastructure Fund for expenses associated with the impact of the transportation network service on our roads, bridges, and infrastructure. So I'm assuming there's probably some small project that
I can tell you where that comes from, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Luciano.
Uber and Lyft
Okay.
now are required to, as part of contracts, to, this percentage that goes back to the town. So we got this in the past year, and the town accountant is just looking for
A home for
utilize the
it,
money.
sure. Very good, so that's good news. Article 2, we're gonna be spending we're proposing to spend $20,000 for completion of work over at the senior center with siding. Article 3, from our town clerk, $10,000 for polling supplies, poll pad bundles for the elections department. Article 4, $18,500 for sewer to purchase a Muffin Monster, which is which grinds up incoming debris and sends them into the sewer system in the appropriate fashion. Article 5, $60,000 from sewer enterprise retained earnings for a new utility body truck with crane, replacing a 14-year-old similarly equipped utility truck. Article 6, $150,000 from sewer enterprise retained earnings to make improvements to a right-of-way over in the Katy Drive King Street easement. I'll pause there if anybody has any questions. Article 7, $290,000 from the sewer enterprise retained earnings account for repairs and improvements to a sewer main and a sewer easement area along the Taunton River behind 421 Route 44. Article 8, we start to get into the free cash items. And Mr. Leggi, can you give me a 30-second explanation for the folks at home what free cash is?
So free cash is calculated by the state based on what's remaining after we've paid our bills. And there's a form that's submitted to us every year, and the state certifies that amount. And this year, we ended up with 3.7 million.
So it's essentially unspent or unencumbered money.
Yes.
Would that be the best way to put it?
Yep.
Very good. So into the free cash items, 12.9 for work to the exterior of Town Hall, painting and other associated repairs. Article 9, $24,000 out of overlay surplus for $24,000 for carpet tiles here within the Town Hall office. Article 10, back to free cash, $42,000 for a standby generator for the Town Hall. Article 11, from free cash, roughly $48,000 for design services for the proposed new addition to the Raynham Public Safety Building. Article 12 and 13 have to do with the computer network here within town. Article 12, $63,000 for new workstations. And Article 13, $95,000 to upgrade the town's server infrastructure. Article 14, staying with free cash, $33,000 to repair and upgrade the police and fire radio system. Article 15 from free cash, $68,000 for a new police patrol vehicle and associated equipment. Article 16 is something that we see on both the spring and fall town meeting warrants. This is, I guess you would call it installment number 2 of funding the ambulance operation out of the ambulance receipts account, roughly $375,000. That's a self-sustaining, running the ambulance is a self-sustaining enterprise. But we do have to transfer the funds out to make them available for use. Staying with the ambulance receipts account, the fire department is requesting just a little bit over $400,000 for the purchase of a new ambulance. I don't see what, Chief, I saw you, Chief. What, does that replace one, or you,
Yeah, we replaced one, yes.
Yep. How old, do you know?
That's a 2009.
9? Replacing a 10-year-old ambulance, which 10 years for an ambulance is a lifetime, the way they run. New source of funds here, the fire alarm account, the sum of $25,000. We're going to take 18 and 19 together. We're going to buy a vehicle using 2 separate funding sources. We're going to take 25 from the fire alarm account, and then in Article 19, we're going to take 25 from the overlay surplus to purchase a new command vehicle. Article 20, again from overlay surplus, $452,000 for the purchase of a new tanker truck for the for the fire department. Replacing one there as well, Chief?
Yes.
How old?
1986.
1986. 33 years out of a tanker truck. That's 33? Yeah. That's a good, long, useful life. Article 21, yes, Mr. Gelfi.
Can I just ask a question? I just saw the number on the tanker truck, and the ambulance was almost, pretty close to the same. What comes in the ambulance?
That ambulance.
Chief, can you, sorry, people at home may actually care about that question. So the question for those that didn't hear it at home was, spending $450,000 for a tanker truck and How much was the, 404,000 for an ambulance, and the question from the crowd here was, I guess, why is the ambulance so expensive compared to a tanker truck?
The ambulance actually is $364,000, or somewhere around the $364,000, and then one of the heart monitors that we use costs about $48,000, I think, to help us stay with the state mandate for the particular equipment that it requires. So you're getting the ambulance with some a power stretcher system in there to kind of reduce injuries and help lift people, where everything is kind of automated. And then 48 of that or so, 50 of that is for a heart monitor that would bring us up to the state mandate that we have to have now. So basically, we're running a little emergency room in the back of that ambulance. So, yeah.
Thank you, Chief. Article 21, we're back to free cash, $750,000 for the purpose of the construction and replacement of the Mill Street Bridge. Any questions or comments there? Mr. Buckley, any, want to inform the voters on what's going on Mill Street, or? And when, perhaps?
Good evening, Ed Buckley, Highway Superintendent. The Mill Street Bridge project is currently under design. We have preliminary drawings we just received in September. It's estimated that the permitting for this will take at least 6 months, and we're hoping to go to construction if the article's approved in the summer, next summer. It'll probably be about a 4 to 6 week project for the majority of the work.
Very good. Appreciate that update. Article 22, again from free cash, $455,000 for the purpose of supplementing Chapter 90, which is our highway repair and maintenance items. Anything in particular there, Mr. Buckley, or is that just like a general fund for general purposes? Sorry, I should ask you to stay
okay. So we had a study done a few years ago to kind of look at the cost of what we need to bring our roads up to a certain standard, and we concluded that we needed to just about double the amount that we're getting from the Chapter 90 funding every year.
That $100,000 we were giving you every year wasn't cutting it, huh? No? No?
There's plenty out there to do, and unfortunately the funds go fast, so. But it can be used for a number of things, just road construction.
Sure.
But there's some flexibility there, all infrastructure improvements, so.
So I'm sure you've got a wish list of things that you want to get accomplished, and this will help you too.
We do.
Very good. Questions for Mr. Buckley? No? Thank you.
Let me stay.
Well, maybe. Article 23, $30,000 from free cash for the purpose of highway facility improvements, painting and maintenance.
Building, exterior building of the highway facility needs a paint job. It's peeling pretty bad on the original part of the building, so we're hoping to get that done next year.
Okay. 24, $250,000 from overlay surplus for a new 6-wheel catch basin cleaner. I think we all know what that entails. Are you replacing?
That's a 25-year-old vehicle.
Very good. Article 25, again from overlay surplus, $79,500 for a new F-550 utility.
19-year-old vehicle.
19-year-old vehicle with the plow set up and everything, yep. 26, $70,000 for a new F-550 dump truck.
18-year-old vehicle.
18-year-old vehicle. You'll never be accused of not getting a useful life out of your vehicles, that's for sure. Article 27, $10,000 for an attachment for your flail mower.
Yeah, that's to replace a 16-year-old attachment for one of our brush mowers that does all the retention areas.
And 28 from free cash, just shy of 20 for a new mower.
That will be to add a mower to the fleet for parks and grounds. We have some aged mowers. We're not going to retire them until they, give up their last useful life. But this is intended to replace and eventually replace an older piece of equipment.
Okay. I think that takes care of your
That's
items. Good luck Monday night. Article 29, Dwayne, just for you, 50,000 into general stabilization. I think they do it to keep you coming to the meetings.
Last year was 500,000.
We'll call this a victory. Article 30, Mr. Luciano.
Informational purposes, what that dollar amount does is it keeps the stabilization account at 10% of our general operating budget. The recommended range from the Department of Revenue kills, what, 8 to 10%? And also, Mr. King can maybe speak to how that's going to affect our bond issue. Through you, Mr. Moderator, to Mr. King, because we're going to be doing a bond issue this fall, and maybe Mike can talk about how that'll help. Yeah, sure.
While you make your way up, Gil, the current balance in the stabilization,
Current balance?
before this 50?
For this, let's see.
Or with the 50s?
Current balance, I'm sorry, that's what we have. It's about 4.1 million, current stabilization balance.
4.1 in general stabilization. For those wondering at home how that gets spent, if it ever gets spent, it's a two-thirds vote only by town meeting. So it's kind of like, think of it as sequestered, right? Available for use, but it's a pretty high hurdle to spend it. Mr. King.
So this winter, we are going to be having a rating call. We're going to be bettering, permanently bonding sewer current Phase 7. And this has been a real feather in our cap when we're on that rating call. And I believe that when we got our last positive outlook, this really impressed the rating agency at that time. So it's been recommended we stick at 10%. And we've had support from numerous committees throughout the town to stick to that. And we hope and believe it will be to our advantage this winter.
You might want to stay right there, Michael. Article 30, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash $250,000 into OPEB. You want to give us a explanation of OPEB and what we're trying to accomplish there? Sorry to put you on the spot.
So OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. So that's the town's health insurance liability. Currently, it stands at $21 million approximately, and in our OPEB fund, which we invest to someday pay for those retiree health insurance costs, currently stands at $183,000. What they use to the actuaries, per se, to come to a funding plan, they call it a annual required contribution. And according to their annual required contribution to fully fund the town's OPEB liability over 30 years, we should be contributing roughly $1.8 million annually. So you can see that this amount is, we're trying to get there. We've been doing $50,000 in the past. The bond rating agencies are liking that we're at least acknowledging the liability. And hopefully, as we get to fully funding our retirement liability, which we believe will be fully funded within the next 10 years, assuming that the current funding rates are working and the returns on investment, we would then shift that retirement contribution to the OPEB at that time.
And just to be clear, I mean, we're not the only community with this issue. This is widespread across all of Massachusetts.
There's only a very few handful of communities, your Westons, that are fully funding their OPEB contributions.
Right. And most aren't even acknowledging it, right?
Yeah, many have their heads in the sand.
Yeah. Very good. Questions for the treasurer collector? No? Article 31, from free cash, $1.3 million into the Public Safety Building Stabilization Fund. Anybody want to comment on that or explain that, or we can? I think it's pretty obvious what we're doing there. You want to explain it, Dwayne?
No, but I promise not to comment, but I'm breaking my promise. What I'd like to see is, as we build these funds up over time, what the final target is, or what we think it is. For instance, we appropriated $1,200,000 last year. This year, $1,300,000. Are we on the way to an estimated 10 million or 20 million? I would, not just this one, I think any time we fund something over time, I would like to have the warrant say this is X against an estimated total of Y. For instance, a perfect example of this is my old friend, the salt building. We started that with 100. We thought it was probably going to be a couple hundred. We finally got at 100 increments to 300,000. And I asked at the time, well, what do we think the final cost is? And the response was, well, we think 300 is pretty good. Well, last year I was a little amazed when we added another 600,000 to the salt building. So I would just like to see the warrants read so much this year against our best estimate of such and such, because where we might fund, for instance, Mill Street, we could have easily said we'll fund 150,000, thinking neophytes like myself thought that was probably the cost of the job. I was amazed that this year we added a multiple of that. So I would like to know right now, for instance, what our best estimate of the total cost of repairing that street is. But that's just,
So you're
well,
back,
I promised not to say more, so I broke my promise, but.
so you want an answer on Mill Street, or you want an answer on the
No.
public safety building, or go?
Comment on the
No,
public
I'm
safety.
just making the comment
No, I think-
overall,
yeah,
that
yeah.
I wish the warrant would tell the final target, the best of our guess, so that what we might appropriate, maybe we change some of the voters' minds if they thought it was gonna be 2 million instead of 300,000 or something.
Well, the good news is that there's you are afforded a level of protection, right? So this money's being sequestered, but it's not being spent. So if it ever got to the point where, let's say the town said, we're gonna spend $1 million to build a building. Forget whose building it is, it's a building. And they slowly put money in the stabilization fund, and then lo and behold, it's a $2 million building. And in good faith, the voters said, yes, we'll pay for $1 million building. But to your point, I think what you're saying is, when do the voters get a second chance to say, we don't want a $2 million building, we said we would do $1 million building? Well, that second chance, Dwayne, is when you spend it out of stabilization,
Yeah.
right? So that's sort of the protection that the voters
Yeah,
are.
I think there's a protection. It's just a request that I'd like to have an idea of what the target is.
Yeah, I think we all would.
We spend along the way,
Just
Buckley,
to
on-
make
I
a
think on
comment,
Mill Street or the salt shed?
Mill
Street.
Street.
I was using them as examples, sir, not picking on you at all.
No problem. So the Mill Street, that article, when we submitted that originally, was based on an engineering estimate for the design, and I added the language and construction in case there were any funds left over, that they could be carried over into the larger project. But the design estimate was originally between 140 and 150,000. So we figured if we had any money left over, it could also be reused, when we went to construction. And then the 750 is our best estimate right now for the full construction of the bridge.
Thank you.
Sure.
Who's going to field public safety?
I was going to comment on the public safety. There's a lot of work going on in the background, looking at the public safety building. You remember last year, we gave some money for a study, and the results of that study came back, and it looks like that it would not be to our advantage to remodel or rehab the existing fire station, police station. So what we're looking at now is the potential of building a new public safety facility in the future, and the 2.5 million that we've allocated, the 1.2 last year, the 1.3 this year, looks like it's enough to cover the soft development costs, so the design and permitting and so forth. When we actually go to build the new facility, that would go to bond, and as Mike had mentioned earlier, that's why we try to work to keep our stabilization fund up, which is also increasing our bond ratings.
Mr. Pacheco?
I took my tie off because I didn't think I was going to have to speak tonight. I think one of the other things, Dwayne, too, that's important to point out is if this goes to a debt exclusion, any of the money that we're putting aside now from free cash is going to offset the cost, which is going to offset or reduce the potential tax burden on the residents. And you spent a great deal of time earlier talking about how you want us to rein in taxes, and this is one of the ways that we're able to do that. So if it was up to me, I would take more free cash to put it aside to fund this project, because I think it's the fiscally sound thing to do. In terms of total project cost, we don't know, because we don't have a total scope of the project yet, but if you've watched our Selectmen's meetings, you can see that we've been going through the process, that we've brought in professional consultants and engineers, and we're doing site visits to better understand what we need to have a long-term building that's sustainable for the community. And without question, I think this project is necessary, and without question, anytime we can reduce the tax burden on residents, we should be doing it, and that's exactly what this proposal is doing, is reducing a potential future tax burden on all residents.
Thank you, sir. Good?
Joe, my only response to that is, when we reduce the tax burden, we're talking a great number of years, 10, 12, 15 years out. I'll tell you, myself and my neighbors, we don't expect to be here then.
Well, that's not
So
accurate.
that effectively, what we're looking for is relief now,
Yeah.
Joe.
And this-
Not 10 years or 15 years from now. If I was 25 years old, I'd love it, and then my grandchildren would love it, and their great-grandchildren now would love it. However, I don't have a great feeling for it, because I don't think I'll ever see it. I'm 87 years old. That's the only comment I have on that.
Very good. You look good for 87, Dwayne.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
I like a liar, it makes me feel good. Thank you.
Article 32, Mr. King, this is yours. You seem to be bringing one of these a year. I'm impressed. What are we doing here?
So the purpose of Article 32 is to put a little more teeth in the building commissioner's fines. So this would allow Mr. Iafredi to issue fines regarding the state building housing code. The individual would be issued a fine. They would have 21 days to pay, or they could request a hearing before the town's municipal hearing officer, which is the town administrator. After that period has lapsed, they would then get a second notice, 30 days to pay, and then if payment is not received at that time, then it could be liened to the tax bill. So it gives a little bit more teeth to the law in that we know that if it goes onto the tax bill, it will be paid eventually.
Very good. Questions? No. Article 33, looks like we're accepting some land in lieu of foreclosure. Article 34, looks like we're going to accept as a town way the road known as Nina's Way. And Article 35 is a citizen's petition to rezone or reclassify an area along Church Street from current Res A to Res B. And the boundaries are listed within the article. And again, it's a citizen's petition. And that, Mr. Luciano.
It's our understanding, you never know until it happens, but it's our understanding the petitioner is coming into this motion to dismiss Article 35.
That's the rumor. Well, that's it, folks. Any questions on the warrant? Any questions on any of this discussion tonight before we shut it down? Thank you all for attending, especially Mr. Gelfi.
I'm not sure if it makes a difference, but Article 33, you have two different last names here.
Uh-oh.
ED and then END.
We have a typo?
I don't know if it makes a difference.
Yeah, it could. I don't think it's enough to,
We can amend it on the floor.
it's not, it doesn't,
Article 33.
Article 33, the first sentence. We'll check with the assessors. Mr. King, are you rising to speak on this, or?
Yeah, I would say, if anything, that's just a Scrivener's error.
Also known as a typo?
Yes.
Yes.
We can amend it on the floor to fix it.
Yeah, I don't think it, so it's the moderator's opinion that that would not prevent us from moving forward on this with an amendment on the floor, but we do need to check it with the assessors. Gordon, Mr. Luciano, or Mr. Waters? We'll check this with the assessors tonight and make sure that this very well could be the way it appears on the deed.
We'll check that.
Yeah. Any other questions? Nice catch, Mr. Gelfi. It's the teacher in you.
Actually, it wasn't me, it was her.
Oh. It's the eye doctor in her. We'll see everybody next Monday night at 7 p.m. Thanks for, Mr. Pacheco.
You're all done?
Oh,
Because I have to adjourn.
the financial team and the town moderator are done. If the selectmen would like to reconvene,
Right from here.
you can.
Yeah, Ms. Riley.
Motion to adjourn for the performance of administrative duties, signing of bills and warrants with no business to be conducted after. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
For adjournment.